Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be alive. Sorry, I have my backup going on here. Let's see if I can fix this up a little bit. Oh, there I am. All right. Pretty shaky. I just went and went to the store for a minute. There was a white Ford Explorer parked near the house. No, on the way actually. A bunch of people sitting there saying, "Kill those people! Kill those people!" Most of these people are involved in the military in one way or another. No, I'm going to give you a couple of pointers here. I'm in horrible pain from the cold, like horrible pain here in these areas where I'm fractured. Massive pain. I'm not taking any painkillers or anything for it because I'm hemorrhaging. It's more than likely that the United States military tried to kill me for my identity. And they've been doing it a lot. This fragging stuff that they kept talking about on base may have literally been for identity theft. I've mentioned this stuff before, but I wasn't quite clear on the methodology. It's more than likely that, you've been hearing stories for decades about, will pop up in the news about mind control technology and whatnot. And it's not an experiment, it's all an invasion. Every single last bit of it is just an invasion. Sorry if you've lost a lot, because, doing something like that. I figured out what happened to me as well. I did have kidney problems, God Lord knows what the hell was fed to me. But probably was due to the fact of, whenever you apply pressure to the spine, a lot of nervous activity takes place. And when you're dealing with something like a hematoma, that's a chemical hematoma, you're dealing with probably, something that reacts directly to this type of electrical. Somebody's been screwing with our light bulbs. I think there's somebody in the attic, so they're going to freeze to death up there, hopefully. Anyway, you're dealing with a chemical compound that reacts directly to electricity. So what ends up happening is it widens the hematoma, you get shakiness, you get confusion, and whatnot. Now, one of the things I remember the military talking about is their favorite strategy is confusion. Apparently it's been deployed upon our own men and women. These are somebody's kids. These are somebody's children. And they're using these people in order to kill these families and replace them with groups from outside of the United States. Big time. Let me explain something to you about a hematoma in regards to a chemical one, especially something that's planned. Whenever if you inject a specific area of the head, you have there's a sheath on the inside of the skull. Now, some of those can actually be controlled to where you can inject directly between the skull and this sheath, and it creates a bubble. Now, when you have a chemical compound that's intended to soften bone and a reactive directly to electrical current, or in this instance, heat specifically, it'll soften the bone and it'll blow the bone, which is what these people have been doing. If this stuff ends up rupturing, a lot of the times it'll go to the base of the skull, which is where the entry point for your spinal cord is at. So you get shakiness and loss of sensation, or you might even end up with Stephen Hawking syndrome. These people have been kidnapping us like cattle. Well, the president is saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing great," and murdering us. I've never broken a bone in my entire life. I've never landed on my head either, really. Never challenged the bone structure, the density, or the strength of the bones in my head. Never needed that. Never had that problem. Excuse me. But the hematoma is probably responsible for the enlargement of the eyes as well. It's not Graves' disease. When I was leaving NATTC Pensacola, I was honorably discharged because I really did work as hard as I could, and I gave it almost nearly my all. I was upset about leaving. I remember I was being transferred from one restriction location to another for discharge, and I was in a affordable full of Marines. Actually, the classroom was next door, and I started crying and screaming about my country. Now, the country I was referring to was not a foreign country; it was the United States. A bunch of military personnel is supposed to be defending the United States, and they're not. They're attacking and killing Americans. And betraying the country. They're getting paid to kill us. Excuse me, it was colder than I thought. But yeah, they all just keep blowing your heads with this stuff until you actually do something about it. Yeah, ruptured hematomas can take place when the bubble gets too big, and rubbing up on the brain actually causes tissue damage and hemorrhaging in the brain, which will affect you. You'll be shaking. And people who take advantage of that situation do not belong in the United States. People who assist really are Americans. This is a huge terrorist attack. A very big one. One of the things that ends up happening when you're sleeping is, let's say you've got a rupture, right, and it's leaked into your skull. And what ends up happening is the liquid flows downward, and typically if you're leaning back, it's going to be on this region here. And the bubble goes up to the front, of course. So this area, these bones here are weakened and softened. Pretty much any fluid will cause that. Any fluid causes erosion. But something like fluoride would definitely cause a problem. In that it really does chelate burn. Actually, saving American lives costs less than this crap that these people have going on. The reason they're carrying on this way is to murder these people, including myself, in order to sell their identities. And this includes the police, which are probably dead. And that would be it, I guess. I really did give 110% when I went into the military. But in regards to these people being United States Army, they've been running around with United States Army insignias as well as Vietnam insignias and whatnot. Regardless of what their past is, they do not have the authorization to kill, to conduct terrorist attacks on American soil, which leads to the conclusion that they may not be American citizens at all. I've lived here nearly my whole life. And I am troubled by the current scenario and the situation that I'm dealing with. And I'm troubled that it's funner for the law enforcement authorities, who some of them are from NATTC Pensacola, are widening their the scope of their terrorist attacks as opposed to being stopped, being arrested. A lot of these people do belong in a prison camp. It's why the term was coined and created, and the situation was generated when terrorism and attacks on the United States were created. These people were put in prison camps. No such activity was created in the United States. It is a problem, and it is a mistake that the United States government made way back in the day. And that would be it. And yeah, my skull is fractured here, back here, from the back, for this point back here, goes this way, and it comes here, and it comes across this way. And it is quite painful.